This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain an action, crime, and horror film called Kill List. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Husband and wife Jay and Shell argue about their finances. Jay hasn't worked in 8 months, and yet he instructs his wife to take cash from their holiday money to get the jacuzzi repaired. He insists that he can't have it broken while dealing with back pains, but Shell yells that there's no more holiday money and nothing's wrong with his back. Later, Jay tries repairing the jacuzzi by himself but fails to do so. One morning, as Jay is shaving, his son, Sam, suddenly slaps him on the back. This makes him flinch and cut himself, so he dabs the blood with some tissue. Afterward, Shell confronts him about not using the grocery list she made, having them end up with 10 bottles of wine. Jay, however, blames her since she invited their guests over. Pissed at her glaring at him, Jay takes a couple of foam swords he bought and calls Sam to play with them. Shell complains about him buying the toys but smiles at seeing her son have fun. Alone in her bedroom, however, Shell calls her mother about their living situation, which Jay overhears. Still, the family carries on, playing sword fighting while Shell carries Sam on her back. At night, Jay tells Sam a bedtime story about honorable soldiers who guarded a man in a bulletproof car. They drove the car into an ongoing war, but when Sam asks if it's not real, Jay tells him it isn't anymore. After the boy is asleep, Jay and Shell welcome their guests, Gal and Fiona. Over drinks, Fiona learns that Shell was a soldier in the Swedish National Service. Jay and Gal were also soldiers who worked together in security missions. As the men sit around a campfire, Gal offers Jay a job, but he's hesitant. He asks if his wife knows about it, and Gal admits that he mentioned it to her. During dinner, Fiona asks what Jay does for a living now, and he claims to be selling tech. He mentions being away from his family because of his job, and Shell adds that it was difficult to feel like a single mother. Afterward, Fiona excuses herself to the bathroom while Gal goes to fetch more wine. Alone, Jay complains about Shell serving them a wonderful dinner, yet using a measuring cup to serve the gravy. With that, Shell takes the gravy away, pissed. Later, Fiona shares that she's in human resources, mainly dealing with terminating people who aren't performing well in their jobs. She defends that it's not personal, but Jay argues that it probably is for the families of the people she fires. Hearing this, Shell questions when he last cared for the welfare of a family, but she jokes that it was 8 months ago when he had a proper job. Pissed, Jay starts rambling about his service, complaining that he could have done better if he'd been stationed in Germany. He then gets up and pulls a tablecloth, ruining their dinner. He storms off, and Shell follows him. While Gal and Fiona are left stunned at the table, they hear the couple yelling. Jay berates her for humiliating him to his friends, but Shell points out that they're not only his friends, and the house isn't only his. Gal then gets up, seeing Sam awakened by the commotion. He takes the boy to bed as the parents continue their screaming match. Minutes later, Gal joins Jay at the garage. Due to their circumstances, Jay considers his job offer, so Gal tells him it's a local job and only has 3 targets on the list. With that, they check on Jay's sniper rifle. Jay worries, given their previous job at Kiev, but Gal assures him that it's time to get back on the horse. The friends then return to the house so Jay can tell Shell about his decision. The mood lightens, and the friends drink and laugh together. Afterward, Jay drunkenly apologizes to Shell, and she simply kisses him on the head. Unknown to them, Fiona goes to the restroom and carves a symbol at the back of their mirror. She then finds the tissues Jay used to wipe his shaving wound and takes them. The following day, Sam wakes up his father, allowing Jay to apologize for their fight last night. Later, Jay and Shell find a dead rabbit on the lawn, which their cat killed and brought. Jay calls it an offering, believing that their cat is trying to feed them. However, Shell thinks the cat simply likes to kill rabbits. She insists on throwing it out, but to her disgust, Jay cooks and eats the rabbit instead. That afternoon, Jay visits Gal, who reveals that Fiona left him earlier. Despite feeling sorry for his friend, Jay tells him to get it together as they're meeting their client. The two head to a hotel, but before getting out of the car, Gal insists on arming themselves to be safe. They then meet the client, who notes that someone recommended them. Suddenly, the client cuts Jay's palm, making him bleed onto a piece of paper. This alarms Gal, who aims a gun at the old man. The man, however, also cuts his palm and puts his blood on the paper, assuring the two that everything is all right. The next day, Shell gets a repairman to finally fix the jacuzzi. The cut on Jay's hand remains painful, so he takes medicine for it, which worries Shell. He then gets into a suit and bids his family goodbye. Soon, he and Gal drive to a hotel, but as they're checking in, Jay's card is declined. he calls Shell to complain about it, pointing out how such a scene draws attention to them. That evening, while having dinner, a group at another table expresses their gratitude for Justin, who saved them from their emotional turmoil. This annoys Jay, and Gal laughs as he fantasizes about killing the group slowly. Suddenly, Justin starts playing guitar, and the group sings praises. Tired of it, Jay walks to the group and grabs Justin's guitar. Justin apologizes for their noise, though he adds that sometimes God's love is hard to swallow. Jay responds that if God loves him, he should keep people like them out of his way. He then drops the guitar on the floor before walking out. The following morning, the two finally begin the job, stalking their first target, a priest. They watch him exit his house with a briefcase, which he then loads into his car. While waiting for the priest outside the church, Jay notices Gal worrying about killing a holy man. To make things easier for his friend, Jay starts theorizing about what the priest might be hiding to get himself on a kill list. While mass is ongoing, the two break into the church's back door and go into the priest's office. Still, Gal has doubt and makes the sign of the cross. Soon, the priest ends his mass and starts tidying up, unaware that the two assassins are preparing for him upstairs. As soon as he walks in, the priest discovers his desk covered in plastic. Behind him, he sees Jay aiming a gun, so the priest smiles and thanks him. Without blinking, Jay shoots the priest in the head. While disposing of the body, Gal wonders why the priest smiled before getting killed, but Jay thinks it's just because he was at peace. Days later, the two check into another hotel, where Jay assures his wife that the first job was done clean. She shares that Fiona dropped by to give Sam a present. She admits to not liking the woman at first, but now she doesn't mind since she could use the company. Jay just reminds her not to let Fiona into the garage. Eventually, Gal and Jay are on the road again, waiting for their next target. During this, Jay mentions that Fiona visited Shell, which surprises Gal. Fiona shared to Shell that she's waiting for Gal, and this uplifts his mood. Soon, the second target, the librarian, comes out of a warehouse. Instead of following him, the hitmen break into the warehouse first to check what he's hiding. There, they find CDs of horrific scenes, which causes Jay to break down in tears upon watching them. Sickened by the contents, the two get into the librarian's house and beat him up. While tied up, the librarian claims that they're making a mistake, but Jay reveals that they saw his stash. Immediately, the librarian cries in fear, insisting that he just kept the videos. They interrogate him to reveal who made the films, but the librarian asserts that he can't say. Jay tortures the man until he finally gives an address to the people who made the films. To make the scene look like a burglary, Gal asks him where he keeps his money, so the librarian directs him to his safe. While Gal goes to get the money, the librarian smiles at Jay and asks him if his friend knows who he is. Jay is confused, but the man simply thanks him, adding that he's glad to have met him. Angered, Jay takes a hammer and breaks his knee and fingers. As he does this, Gal finds some files from the safe and becomes deeply worried. Finally, Jay sets the man's head on the table, and the librarian thanks him before getting his head smashed. Upon leaving the place, Jay insists on going to the address the librarian gave them, despite Gal's warning that they're going off the list. They soon arrive at a construction site, and Jay goes alone. Gal stays in the car, worrying over his friend until he decides to check on him. He enters a room and immediately discovers a dead man and his dog. With no sign of Jay around, he continues searching until he finds him slamming a man's head against the wall. Despite seeing the bloody mess, Gal just tells his friend to leave. While burning the bodies of the men he killed, Jay justifies his actions, since they were bad people who should suffer. Later that evening, Jay stares outside his hotel room when he finds Fiona in a white dress waving at him. Absent-mindedly, he waves back, but he questions if what he saw was real. Soon, Jay returns home earlier than expected, surprising Shell. He insists on seeing Sam, but instead finds Fiona at his house. While cleaning himself up, Jay notices a rash spreading across his body. Shell discovers that this is because of the wound on his palm, which has gotten infected. He eventually has it checked by a doctor, only to find that his usual practitioner has been replaced. However, the new doctor is more interested in his daily stress than checking on his wound. Meanwhile, Gal sorts out the files from the librarian's safe. He shuffles through photos and records regarding their old mission in Kiev. Unbeknownst to him, Amongst the papers has the same symbol that Fiona drew on the back of Jay and Shell's bathroom mirror. One day, Shell finds their cat dead and hanging over the front door. They call over Gal for help, and the two men agree that it's a message. Seeing him angry, Gal reminds him that they abandoned the job because they got enough money from the librarian's safe to cover the contract. However, he admits that he also found files in the safe, which included a photo of them outside the priest's house and another file on their mission in Kiev. Jay doesn't care, but Gal insists that it's bad news. Pissed, Jay insists on finishing the job, but Gal refuses to work with him anymore after seeing him go ballistic at the construction site. After their argument, Gal leaves, but he stops to comfort Shell. He advises her to urge Jay to get help before going on his way. After burying their cat, Jay spends the day comforting his son, who's saddened about the pet's death. They then return home, and after Sam heads to his room, Shell confronts her husband about Gal walking out on the job. Jay thinks Gal has gone soft, but Shell hits him for jeopardizing his mission and possibly endangering them. Soon, she asks if he can get replacements to free them from the contract, noting that they're already compromised. Days later, Jay and Gal meet with a client again to offer them replacements, but the man refuses, threatening to hurt their families if they don't complete the job. The client calls them cogs who should keep on turning. This angers Gal, but the man's guard blocks him off. With no choice, the two head home, only for Jay to find that Shell is packing up to leave with Sam. Knowing that it's dangerous for them to stay, he helps his wife and child leave. Soon, Jay and Gal get back to work to finish the last target, a member of the parliament, or an MP. Jay mockingly asks Gal if that's more acceptable than killing a priest, wondering if he wants to cry about the job to Shell. This begins an argument between the two, with Jay accusing his friend of being too close to his wife while Gal points out that he treats Shell horribly. The argument progresses into a brawl, but soon, they're back to talking about their relationships. Gal notes that he might be in love with Fiona, but Jay argues that he doesn't know her well enough. The next day, they head to the forest and camp near the MP's mansion. Unable to sleep that evening, Jay apologizes to Gal for getting them in trouble. Gal calls him a madman, but he's still his best friend, so he accepts his apology. In the middle of the night, Jay wakes up to the sound of a drum beat. He wakes Gal up, and they find a mass of people walking with torches in the forest. The two hide behind trees as they observe dozens of men and women wearing wooden masks. They follow the group into a clearing where they witness one woman voluntarily climbing up a log and putting a noose around her neck. The woman waves goodbye to the people, and the drumming begins again. Soon, the woman kicks off the log, hanging herself as the group applauds. This makes Jay see red, so he starts shooting. Noticing this, one of the leaders stretches out his arms, allowing Jay to shoot him in the chest. The cult members start running to them in anger, so the two escape while Jay shoots down a few of them. Jay and Gal head into a tunnel to escape the forest, only to find that the exit is bricked up. Still, they break down the barricade, only for the cult members to reach them. Gal starts shooting, while Jay tries to find the way out. Instead, Jay comes upon another cult member, who he stabs. Realizing that Jay isn't behind him anymore, Gal looks for him, but this allows another cult member to ambush him. The man stabs him repeatedly until Gal shoots him down. Jay finally finds him, but Gal struggles to move. They hear more cult members howling in the distance, so Jay drags his friend away, only to find that Gal is mortally wounded. He instructs Jay to put him out of his misery, so when Jay aims a gun at his head, Gal thanks him before getting shot. By morning, Jay is able to return to their car and head to the cottage where Shell and Sam are hiding. Seeing his dad break down, Sam gets worried, but Shell puts him to bed. At night, Jay notices movements outside, so he checks and finds her car tires slashed. Afraid, he turns off the lights in the cottage and instructs Shell to keep Sam safe. To protect his family, Jay goes on his own and finds a nearby clearing with torches lit. He aims his gun, but gets knocked out from behind. Meanwhile, Shell arms herself and immediately shoots a man who enters the door. Hearing more intruders, the mother shoots down more of them, but soon hears someone breaking in from the windows. Back at the clearing, Jay finds himself tied up and sees a client amongst the cultists. As part of the ritual, they release his wounded hand and cut into the wound again. They then remove his shirt and place a wooden mask on his face and a knife in his hand. Then, they push him into fighting a masked figure known as the Hunchback. The Hunchback staggers toward him, also wielding a knife. Jay manages to evade his enemy's attacks, but soon gets wounded in the arm. Driven into a corner, Jay becomes more aggressive, slicing at his opponent until the hunchback falls to the ground. He then proceeds to stab the person repeatedly, successfully winning the battle. The cultists applaud him, and the leaders remove their masks, revealing the doctor, the client, and Fiona. When Jay removes the hunchback's mask, he discovers that it's Shell with Sam on her back. As the realization dawns on him, the client crowns Jay, and the man can do nothing but accept it.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.